Welcome to I Change the Narrative, a podcast for and about Black men, inspiring, supporting, and empowering Black men and Black boys. Today's topic is Your Health is Your Wealth as it relates to Black men. Before I get started, I want to introduce our guests. I want to let our guests introduce themselves and tell the audience and listeners about himself and the work that he does that lends itself to the topic or the lived experience. Coach B, thank you so much for coming on to the show. Please introduce yourself.
Nika, thanks so much for inviting me. I think your topic is needed, much needed for me personally, for my family, and by proxy, I think every other Black family needs to be addressing your topic today, which is really taking care of our own health. Black men definitely have our own challenges regarding that, and I'm no different now there's anyone in my family. My name is Brendan Moore. All of my friends call me B. All of my students and people who athletes I've worked with over the years know me as Coach B. I'm not always a nice guy in the gym or in training or in coaching, but I try to get you to your very best. So I have a brand called Eating for Abs. We've been around for about 12 years now. We've worked with NCAA teams. We've worked with individual athletes to break world records, to compete at the highest levels, Olympians, state champions, national champions. Worked with regular corporate job-having people to just learn how to be their very best and to really address their underlying health. So I have my own personal journey that I'm happy to share during the show, but for sure, you can understand this topic is much needed for everyone watching, and I'm happy to contribute to the show today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So let's get started. Please tell us what made you decide on being a coach in the areas of fitness and health and eating.
Yeah, for sure. So years ago, my dad was undergoing dialysis, kidney dialysis. And so I have my nuclear family, my mom, dad, my brother. And then I have my own, nuclear family, my wife, my children. Mm-hmm. And when I was going through the dialysis, he was fortunate enough to get put on the organ donor list, not the organ donor list, but the organ recipient list, which would get him out of dialysis. Now, you and I know each other from our alma mater, Howard University. My younger brother, who you also know, Rustin, was graduating. I remember clearly he was graduating from Howard. And, all the family came into town, like your family, I'm sure, did as well. Right. And one of the things that we had to manage at the time was Dad was still dialysis. So we had to, schedule his dialysis now in DC just to make sure that he could function. So it was something that we, as a family, had dealt with for many years. And so it was very celebratory when we get to the point where he might be able to kick that and, get a new kind of lease on life with a new kidney. And I remember clearly the day he was going into surgery. My mom was at the hospital. My wife and I were not at the time because it was early morning and they were going to surgery. And he called, and he just that conversation for me was super important because he was speaking in kind of a finalistic fashion, and thank God he made it, right? But it was a very painful conversation for me. And it was a thing that, I couldn't do anything. There was nothing I could do except for wait. And I remember coming out of that conversation saying that I will do anything it takes, everything it takes to at least forestall how long I would have to make a call like that or have a conversation like that with my own kids. And that was it. It was a switch. It was like, whatever it takes. I'm willing to start over. I'm willing to not know. And I was the guy who, like many other guys my age at the time, I play sports, I lift weights, I do all that stuff. I was in what I consider reasonable shape for my age. Probably too old to play basketball at the time, but I was still very active. Right. But I knew that there was more to the equation. So I went out and I did what we do. I'm an engineer. I did the research, started figuring out not the research like people get sick and they go to WebMD and they start self-diagnosing. I did the opposite. I said, somebody knows this already. Somebody out there does this for a living and can move me forward. And I need to find my guy. And I ended up finding a guy in Toronto, Canada, who at the time had been a trainer in Miami. He's from Toronto, was back in Toronto, and he was beginning to coach people online. And it's him and his assistant, kind of his assistant coach. And we started working together for a year. And in that year, I did everything. I did absolutely everything. And when I was doing that, you know, like I said, you and I know each other from Howard, but we also know each other from kind of my brother and my brothers in my previous project, Alumni Roundup. So we were blogging, we were sharing everything online. And at the time, I just started, like, you know, we had Alumni Roundup, which was about HBCU alumni. And then I started this secondary blog that was called Alumni Wellness, because I was trying to share I was actually trying to hold myself accountable by being public. That was the deal. And so I was just writing. And what happened at the time was people started following the blog and started asking me questions. And I couldn't answer those questions in good conscience. I was saying, you know, this is what I was coached to do that has been personally made for me. And so I have to always give you that asterisk. Like, I can't tell you. What I can do is just kind of share my own journey, and I'm not qualified. But I realized at some point that I cared enough about the people who were reading and who were following along to then approach my coach and say, I think I want to be able to share some information with folks because I care about my community. And I know this information is all brand new to me. So how do I get in position? We wrote out, and you know, in addition to what I was supposed to be doing at home every day and every night, and multiple times a week in terms of in the gym and in the kitchen and all those other different ways, we wrote an education plan. I would go back to school. I would learn and qualify myself. And then after I did that, I devoured that. After I did that, I needed an internship. And in my gym at the time, there was a soccer coach for Rutgers University who was working out in my gym every day. And I'm a social guy, so I'm talking to everybody anyway. Right. And she became like it was an incredible relationship because she became kind of like one of my early clients, one-on-one. And I worked with her so consistently just to get her where she needed to be able to keep up with these girls who were 15 years younger than her, 10 years younger than her, but also to meet her personal goals. They eventually brought me in to consult for the team. My first internship, which was great. We worked with the team for like 4 years, culminating in their first Final Four appearance ever. Wow. Which was incredible. We would retool the entire team's nutrition. And so that really became my focus, was like, you know, we would go over every menu at every restaurant that they would go to at away games. We would provide a menu for off season. We would provide a menu for game day, for off days, for incoming freshmen. What do the parents need to know? We would overhaul everything. And the feedback that we would get from other coaches who played against that team was, your team plays like they have batteries in their back. And the end of the game, we were killing them because we could outrun them because we had removed the resistance of bad diet from bad habits from the team. And it was incredible. Right. And so from there, I went on to found Eating for Abs with my business partner at the time, Andre Frazier, who's also a Bison, who had also been taught by my same coach. And I see we have Sherman with us now. How you doing, sir?
What's up, Vice? Oh, this feels like a Howard reunion.
Yes, it is.
Feels like we should be on the yard somewhere at the flagpole.
Yeah, you know what? As soon as this COVID thing blows over, I'm going to meet you there for sure.
Right.
Listen, I'm up for it. We need to get together after this, but I apologize for daddy duty calls, and I needed to answer. So
no problem, not at all.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So that's a great opportunity to kind of transition. You know, there is a story there. From Eating for Abs, we started working with individuals, not just teams, and just helping people to really understand how to align their diet with their body's design. That's the deal. Sherman, I'd love to hear what you're doing these days.
Well, I have pushed personal training and group training back from my primary to secondary, maybe tertiary role in my life, but I'm still intricately involved. And I love to hear. When I knew that I was going to be on talking with you, I was excited because I love the idea of eating for, and eating for abs, and eating for life, and eating for function, eating for health, eating for wealth, eating for, because we have to understand the value that nutrition plays. And everybody wants to buy the latest piece of equipment, and everybody wants to jump on the newest fitness fad, but we want to skip over our nutrition. And so I tell people, let's sit down and talk to the clients I get and people who want to train with me. Um, let's see if you have good news. And they're like, good news. And I was like, yes, nutrition, exercise, water, and sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So my news starts with nutrition. If the nutrition is all off kilter, then everything else is going to suffer. Nutrition is the floor, it's the foundation.
Yes.
Then we build exercise, but then that exercise, the corner joists are water and sleep. And how hydrated are you, and how rested are you? And so, again, I was excited to be able to come on and share this with you, because I think that we are simpatico as it relates to eating correctly and for your body type and for your activity level and for your age are critical. And I think us taking the time to really address that is crucial, especially for brothers out here. Yes.
Slow down for me and just give me that acronym again.
So good news. So I want to know, how good is your nutrition?
Mm-hmm.
How good is your exercise?
Mm-hmm.
How good is your water intake? And how good is your sleep?
I love it.
So it starts with,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I start with that because I live for acronyms. I think if I could live in a world of just acronyms, because you can say a whole lot in a really condensed space.
Yeah.
And so I started with the good news, and it also ties into what I do in terms of ministry. So I like having one simple set of letters that I can use in lots of platforms.
I have an acronym that so well aligns with yours. I love it. So, and that's why I wanted to hear yours again. My acronym is EARN, and it's just like yours. It's environment, activity, rest, and nutrition. So I love it. I'm going to write yours down. I love this.
And I'm jotting this down, right? And I will make sure to give you all the credit. I do not believe in plagiarism, sir.
That's great. That's fantastic.
Wow.
I even recognizing that there is quality information out there.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't need to reinvent it. We just need to re-access it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's deal with the life expectancy of Black men. As you know, it's lower than that of white men. How do Black men fight against those statistics?
I don't think the statistics are what we want to. I mean, I understand your question, right? Let's start here. The answer is not. It's not enough for the answer to be about the individual. We have to look at it in a generational fashion. We didn't get here in our lifetime, right? The problems that are affecting that particular statistic are systematic, mm-hmm. and on repeat and replay for the sake of profits.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
If there were no conscience, if I had no conscience, I talked to one of my good friends who's also a Howard alum. He's a meditation teacher, and we run a running joke that we make. And I said, if I had no conscience, I would open a McDonald's on one side of the highway and an Eckerd or Dwayne Reed on the other side of the highway. Mm-hmm. I get you coming and going, right? That's I don't have those businesses because I do have a conscience, because those are both businesses that are poison and that are in line with each other to continue the profit machine at the expense of people's health. So yeah, I don't think that. I think we have to break cycles in our own lifetime, but we have to break them in a generational fashion. Sherman's a dad, right? And what he's learned, he has to pass on to his kids. He needs to create an environment in his home that not only saves his life, but saves his kids' lives, and let them learn lessons that will, pass on to his grandkids. So I think that the first step in addressing that particular statistic is realizing that there's a big machine that working against us.
Very good. That's good.
Yeah. I think where you started to go was that the statistic isn't the target. It's the mindset. It's the history. And I'm again, that's why I was excited about being able to chat with you today, because I think this is going to sound like very repetitive stuff, but I know that it takes repetition for us to develop healthier habits. We have to manage our internal factors for a shorter life and the external factors. The understanding the stressors that we put on ourselves from our food choices, from our what we ingest into our psyche, into our spirit, what we do with our rest, and how we physically manage stress is one part. It also we have to account for the culture. We have to account for the environment. That's why I love Earn, because the environment that you are in has an incredible impact on what you are able to do. If I'm in an environment where healthy food choices are not an option, where poverty is the primary driving motivator for my behavior, then it is just rhetoric for you to stand up and say, make healthier choices.
Right.
So you want to increase the longevity of your life, you need to eat smarter. But I don't have eating smart as an option. You tell me to read books, but I have no books on my shelf.
Yeah.
So how all you're doing now is frustrating me.
Right.
Because you're telling me to be and telling me to do something that I don't have the capacity to do. And then you have the nerve to tell me it's my fault that I'm not doing it. So now I rebuff all of that good advice, all of that, because I don't feel that you're present to where I exist.
Right.
If you're not present to where I am, how can you convince me I need to come to where you are? To get me to where you are, we've got to get beyond meet me halfway. We've got to go to people. And I try every time not to preach, but 1 Corinthians 9, Paul says, when I'm with the Jews, I live like a Jew. When I'm with Gentiles, I go anywhere and everywhere so that I might save some.
Right.
And I think in terms of health, we want to stand on the healthy side of the street and invite people over instead of going to the unhealthy side of the street and grab hands with them and bring them across the street. Because navigating that street is tricky.
Wow.
It's like the ultimate game of Frogger. You gotta know when to go and when to lay back. And if we keep telling people to come instead of bringing people, I think all we're gonna do is end up leaving a generation behind.
Yeah, I hear you saying accessible, and I also I think that's brilliant. I think you're absolutely right, and I also think that you touched on culture, and part of that culture that we have to address is the reward system. Okay. So if I'm a young lady, a young teenage lady, I want attention that rivals what other young girls in my department are getting. Now, what is being rewarded is thickness, right? That we can get into all other types of behaviors that male and female, but specifically on the female side, I think early rewards are placed in terms of rewards are placed on what will maybe later lead to unhealthy behaviors and unhealthy body types. There aren't as many rewards yet that we have to really put a mindful effort on for all of our kids. Is saying that we need to place the rewards behind the healthy behaviors, period, in all facets.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a culture.
Right. And yeah, I agree with you 1,000%. There's a difference between accepting and applauding.
Right.
I think that we have to be able to accept people for who and however they are. Yeah. But that doesn't mean we applaud certain behaviors.
That's right.
And we tend to applaud so if you're not clapping for me and telling me that everything I do is just right, then you don't accept me. That's not true at all. I accept you. I just don't applaud that negative behavior. And in this everybody against me is a hater, and everything that silences me is cancel culture. In this sensitive time in which we live, I think we have to have the boldness to stand up and say, Bruh, listen, I accept you as you. I get to align myself with you because we have a lot of lines of commonality, but I can't accept some of your behaviors. Now,
Right.
because I mean, I can applaud some of your behaviors. Now, because I accept you, it's okay that I don't applaud those. Let's work to tweak those behaviors and move those behaviors into a better place.
Right.
That's right. 100%. Now, in the greater discourse of the day, one of the things that gets conflated a lot of times is the idea. This isn't about this particular topic, but let me just give me the leeway for a second to go into it. We end up accepting conversation about people of color when we should be talking about Black people in some of these conversations. Sometimes we allow Black issues to be adopted and co-opted into this people of color issue. And we really need to be talking about Black issue, right? Yes. So let me parallel that here. From what I understand about this conversation, we need to really be addressing Black men. Is that the deal?
Yes, definitely.
Right? Yes.
Right. So let me drill in for a second. I love the idea that you invited me for this conversation. I love the fact that we're having this conversation. Ladies have the ability and often do things in ways that Black men don't. You all have the ability overall, overwhelmingly, to travel together, to celebrate each other in person, in travel, and on those trips. We love the pictures that come from it. You guys do incredible things, all these photos and everything. Meanwhile, we sit at home and we might be calling our guys, or we might be checking in here and there. And I think we probably got a lot better at it during pandemic because we just have to, right? But my good friend Eric Roberson put me on this, and he said that as Black men, as we get older, we often get further and further apart because we are so self-concerned with our families and making sure that our families are taken care of, our spouses, our partners, our children. And meanwhile, those spouses and those children, they're off reconnecting and staying very well connected with their peers. And we end up in like this silo. And so we now have been deliberately fighting against that in my personal friend circle. We have a weekly Zoom meeting, right? Before pandemic, we travel quietly. We don't do all the photos and publicize. We travel. There's a core group of guys, most of them, and we're gonna be somewhere once or twice a year. And in those, because I have that trust circle, what we're working on in that group is really expanding from just like, hey, let's just go have a great time. We ride ATVs and jet skis and all that kind of crap. But there's also times in those trips where we're really just open emotionally and checking on each other without our spouses there, talking about the kids, talking about our fears, and we're better as a result of it, right? And that's something that I'd like to see more Black men enjoying.
Yes.
And so we've now looped the kids into it in terms of we have like a Slack group. The kids are on the Slack group. They can interact with uncle this and uncle that, and it's for me, it's spreading, and it's something that I want to spread, and I want to see everyone who's listening, just understand that we need it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's life-giving.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I travel yearly with Eric on the Capital Jazz Cruise, and so I get to see him. Yeah, I get to see him every year. And I look forward to that. And it's on that ship. We have about 3,000, 4,000 people. It's there that you start to see the behaviors that you're talking about, where the women gather together naturally and they reconnect. And on that ship, you see it in men doing it. And it becomes a microcosm of what you just talked about. The problem is that when we get off the ship, I come back to a world that doesn't look like that. I come back to a world where, guys we tend to not, let me say not say can't, we tend to not want to get together and feel like we're in a safe space and kind of let the wall down. I used to do this thing with my friends, Bruhs Breaking Bread. So we'd get out and we'd go to Buffalo Wild Wings or go to someplace casual, just so people could feel comfortable to come and hang out And I tried to make sure it was some young guys and some people a little older than me, so that we have all these age groups represented, to just be like, hey man, so I saw the picture you posted of you and your girl, man. So what's up with that? So that we have a nice cross section of Black male culture able to speak life to a 24-year-old. I would have loved to have sat in those kind of circles. That kind of stuff happened when we were coming up at the barbershop.
Mm-hmm.
I used to have to go to the barbershop. I don't need to go now, but there was a time.
Still go. We need you there.
I still go now because I go, and a lot of times when I go to get shaved, it is just for the discourse and the dialogue. And you walk in and be like, see, what y'all don't understand. There's always one who's like, see, what y'all don't understand is that the Republicans or the Democrats, it's always one. And that kind of interconnectivity, that exchange is crucial. And I think people, when we start talking about being fit, I separate being fit from being healthy, because there are a lot of people with a lot of muscles and a lot of strength and a lot of a high VO2 max, but are you healthy?
Right.
Are the areas of your life reconciled with one another? And I think that and I'm so glad you said it, that Black people and when people say, well, people of color, I said, no, you mean Black? Because I'm Black. I'm not a person of color, because every person has a color. So I want you to talk specifically to me about me, because I have a lived experience that may be different than my Hispanic brothers and sisters.
Right.
When we recognize what we need as a culture, what we gain and get from each other, from iron sharpening iron, from just being we make each other so much better. And so I love to hear that you got a group of bros that are getting together, because we need those uncles. Yeah. Your children need to know that Uncle so-and-so is there. And Uncle so-and-so, that's why we had play relatives, because we had a community growing up. Yeah. I had a bunch of uncles. And I tell young guys that I mentor now, they call me, hey, so Unc, we have to do, I need you to look at me as an uncle. An uncle is a family member who has protective responsibilities, even if he is not required to provide for you. But we'll be there in case you need something. That's the kind of connectivity that I think, especially as Black men, we've got to foster it. And if we foster it, it will naturally enlarge.
Yep. Another key there is that I think we need to foster that in spaces socially that are not solely religious. Like, I know there are religious-based men's groups. They're fantastic. But we need to have those doors open to people and in spaces where that's not the agenda. It's just the example, right? Like, I'm not going to say that you know, that I'm going to change my religion because I'm allowing you in the group. But I can talk to you on a man basis and make sure this space is safe and comfortable and open about all the other areas of life. And if you want to talk about that stuff, we can do that too. You know, we do a great job of it in religious circles and spaces like the barbershop. But we need to make sure we're expanding those spaces and make sure that it's accessible again to young brothers. You know?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm having a wonderful time. Thanks so much for inviting me here, by the way.
Oh, no problem. I knew that this dynamic would work. I knew. So the drug companies, food and fitness industries want you all to fail. Talk about that philosophy.
So I'll go first. I don't know that they want us to fail completely. I think that they want us, and I would love in the medical association, they want us to succeed some, but not so much that we don't need them. See, if we completely failed, we may turn away from them. So they give us a modicum of success and a modicum of health and a modicum of well-being, with the premise that if you succeed enough, if you keep me connected to you, I can help you succeed all the way.
Right.
You know, so they don't want us to be absolved from any connection to them. I look at the fitness industry and how much stuff they sell
Exactly.
Hundreds of billions of dollars of shake weights. The fact that you could sell something called a shake weight, and people, they sold 30 million units of this, and you're doing this under the guise that that's going to make you. It is, but people have these holes in our souls, and we're looking for wellness and wholeness and healing, and we're looking for it, and they are capitalizing on it. And so they knew that that wasn't going to make a person healthy, but they knew that it would make them feel justified enough so that they would make an investment. Pharmaceutical companies don't want you well, because if you were well, their profits would go out the window. So that's why they give you the thing that cures A but causes B. And then the next guy comes along and says, but I cure B, but I cause C. And so now I'm A, B, C all the way down the line. We have 26 letters in the alphabet. Do you want? I knew a person on 12 different pills. Every morning they got up and they had to take 12 pills. And I said to them, so why don't we change how you eat, how you rest, and how you exercise?
Right.
And let's see if that, because I think you can eat yourself to better health. Now, you may have some pre-existing conditions, but by and large, most people, if they made nutritional changes, would see an exponential increase in their health. We went from 12 to none. And I'm not going to say it's all because of boot camp, and it's all because of I'm not a dietitian, so I don't make healthy, I can't prescribe, but I can make some healthy suggestions. But I believe it was from the notion of, I don't want to be a slave to these little pills for the rest of my life.
Right.
And it's that first mindset. When you say, I don't want to be beholden to this so that I can be free, I think that's the start. I think that's where it starts.
There's also a normalization that's happened in families, and that is, what did you see your grandmother or your mom or your dad or your grandfather do? And in many cases, we operate based on that normalization. Like, oh, well, it's normal for me to see a pill box in the house with 3 rows, one whole row of 3 for Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And, that's, again, part of that normalization, that culture we're talking about, and breaking generational binds. And part of that has to be, if you're dealing with someone who's normalized bad health but doesn't know that it's bad health, how do we incentivize the opposite or change behaviors is the question. And it's the long question, right? I'm going to keep on throwing these names out here because these are my close friends and people who've changed my life.
Right.
Dr. Roddy Ferguson. Dr. Ferguson said to me when I was first just dealing with NCAA teams, and I was thinking about starting an individual coaching business. I clearly remember he said, because I was struggling with it just because of the I have stuff to make a living, right? And I'm going to be starting another new business from scratch. He said, B, do you know that your business is going to help people? Is it going to do good for people? I said, 100%. I'm a living testament. My family's living testament, 100%. He goes, then you're messed up if you don't do it. If you don't do whatever you can do to share that word and share the good news, then you're messed up. And that worked. It was enough of a kick in the butt, the self kick in the butt, to move me in the direction that I needed to do to start at least putting myself out there in a way that I had information that could be helpful. But we've got to break those chains of normalization. That's a big deal. And to your question, Nika, about do they want us to fail? I think in terms of me as the singular grain of sand unit, I don't matter to Johnson & Johnson. I don't matter to Pfizer, Merck. Culture matters,
right.
And now we're back to talking generational fixes and things that we've got to do. The big power is if I share my information with Sherman. If we are connecting and we can share information, and the idea of what works for me might work for you in terms of incentivizing my family, we can make great generational change through our connection and continued conversation. So that's the deal.
I agree. And it is when you have the circle that will hold you accountable, when Dr. Roddy Ferguson, who has accomplished much, says to you, who has accomplished much, listen, man, the ultimate goal is to solve a problem. Whose life are you making better? If you can go out and make people's lives better, then go do it. And we have to have the the fortitude to say that to people.
Mm.
But we also have to have a degree of fortitude to receive that.
Mm-hmm.
And recognize that admonition is really an incentive to go out and be great and go establish stuff. If the pursuit is the bag, if the pursuit is the fame, if it's the followers, if it's the money, then you'll co-opt yourself. But if the goal is to make one person's life better, and think about it, there's one person on this earth, B, whose life is better because you spoke up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you and I both know that there's more than one, but there's at least one person who says, my life is better because of these words that I heard, because of this life that I saw lived out. Man, we think that that's a small thing. Yeah, but what if that person goes on to do something phenomenal that they would not do if they had not heard your word?
Right.
So it is a global context. It is a historical context of where we've come from, but what impact are we having? And that person may never come back to you and give you the platitudes and write you this big giant, I want to give you a $25 million check for what you've done, but their life, you know,
right.
You know that they had an impact, but they are saying your name somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a seed being planted. Somebody somewhere is like, hey, you told me about a guy. What was his name again? And that's our reward, that the seed planted bears fruit. Because you can drop one apple seed in the ground and grow a tree full of apples, but every apple has within itself to replicate 100-fold. So the one person you saved has an opportunity, or one person you help has an opportunity to help hundreds of thousands of people further down the line. We've got to think of this in the long game.
That's right.
And you said that we've got to go back to, we've got to get out of the short game. We got to play the whole field. We got to play the whole field because the end zone's at the other end.
That's right.
It's not just about first downs, it's about touchdowns.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right. Nika, did you have questions that were submitted? What I'd love to do at some point, before we burn the whole time, is make sure we're giving some to-dos, right?
Yes, I do. One question is from an audience member or listener. It seems that Black men have to be selfish when it comes to their fitness and eating practices. How do you communicate that to them? You have to be selfish.
Nika, that we have to be okay, I think I got it now.
Mm-hmm. You got it? It seems that
the question is funny because it's who's talking, right? How do we communicate that to them is the part that's bothering me.
Yes, other Black men.
Okay. Yeah. Join me in my walk. That's the deal. I don't want to pathologize Blackness, pathologize Black maleness, right? Mm-hmm. Join me in my walk, right? You're not gonna come to my house and we're gonna eat, and there's not gonna be delicious whole food ingredients meals. It's gonna happen,
right?
Do you have to be selfish in regards to your health? That's probably a human deal, right? That's not just Black men. Right. If we want to do better, if we acknowledge that we are in point A and we want to somehow elevate, then yes, you may have to separate yourself in your behaviors from those who live with you. Right. Oftentimes when I'm coaching folks, I will ask them on day one, what's your home situation like? Who's cooking the meals? Mm-hmm. Who's preparing? Who's doing the shopping? I need to know how much resistance you're going to get from the change that I'm going to be helping you introduce into your life. And nobody that I've ever met likes change,
right?
Because even the best friend doesn't like to see you change. Because if you're really best friends with someone and you say, I'm going to be changing this thing, then that means that you feel like something is wrong and you are going to change. Well, if your best friend is, simpatico and kin with you, they may not be ready to say, I'm doing the same thing as you, and you've labeled that wrong. So they subconsciously will resist. They'll put obstacles in your path.
Right.
That's not ever going to change. This human behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
how do we communicate that to them is problematic for me. It really is. How do I acknowledge that I'm going to have to be? It's got to be a selfish and a self acknowledgement that there are things that I'm going to have to do for self improvement.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. I think I would go to put on your own mask before you assist others.
My man.
You know, that I hear that. I fly a lot, traveled a lot. Well, pre-pandemic, traveled a lot, and I used to bristle because I'd say, well, if I have children, I'm gonna save my children. But if you lose consciousness, you save nobody. So put your own mask on and then assist others. So in that regard, you have to think of yourself not for yourself, but so that you can think of other people.
Mm-hmm.
See, this false notion of selflessness means I think of everybody else at the expense of me, which is really an inverted version of pride. By that I mean I cannot do either of you any good if I don't take care of myself well enough to be present in this moment.
Right.
So if I feign this well, I'm so magnanimous that I just give to you and I have no regard for myself, then I'm giving you less than an ideal product. I'm giving you less than the best version of myself. Then I'm really not as for you as I claim to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's that overly modest, the falsely modest, which is really proud. You know, it's that mindset. So I think that we have to take care of ourselves so we can take care of everybody else. And then I can walk the walk with you.
Right.
You know, it isn't. I love the fact that you're not a lecturer, you're a liver.
Mm-hmm.
So come live life with me, and then see what it is. I want us to conduct health and fitness in the lab, not in the lecture. The lecture was where we sat and we heard a whole bunch of words, and we got in the lab, and then we had to see if those chemicals came together the right way. If we have the right amount, we have too much, we have too little. I get to make mistakes. We spend too much time in the lecture. We got to pull people into the lab. They've got to see this thing acted out and lived out, because otherwise it all sounds good, but they'll say, yeah, but I don't have your income, or I don't have your friends. I don't have a group of guys who will come together. You don't have to do all that. You don't have to have all that, because you didn't have all that until you started it.
Right.
And when you start it, then you'll have it. And that comes from living, not from lecturing.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yeah.
100% right. I agree.
All right. Next question. Because of the pandemic, how do I maintain a healthy body and eating habits, even though I am in my 70s?
I'm going to keep it short and quick.
Mm-hmm.
I go for walks 5-6 days a week with my wife. My mom is now in town. I have a rower. She has made the rower hers. Right? It really is just like, at the end of the day, we live in a use it or lose it paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what are you willing to not be able to do? Are you willing to not be able to walk?
Mm-hmm.
Are you willing to not be able to bend your knees and squat and pick something up? Are you willing to not be able to, carry your grandchild? Mm-hmm. So I would say that we need to frame our goals in that sense. At 70, even as what abilities do I want to maintain having? And so, a good morning walk, a leisurely walk for 45 minutes or so, 5-6 days a week is not something you really want to give up. So if you have the ability to do it, I would suggest that's a great place to start.
Awesome. Sherman?
Yeah, I like this. I like the simplicity because I think we make it so complicated and convoluted.
Yes.
And externally, they do that so that you are reliant. You know, they make it's too hard for you to do by yourself. But if you pay me, then we will show you how to do it.
Yeah.
The reality is walking is a great way to move your body through space. Every client I have, I tell them my goal is not to have you in a bodybuilding championship, not in a fitness competition. It is so that you can do life easier, so that you can pick your grandkids up, you can pick your kids up, you can go up and down the stairs 5 times a day if you need to, without having to stop and lean on the wall and say, somebody go up there and get that for me. And as it relates to nutrition, you won't eat what you don't buy.
Right.
Yes.
So if you say, I keep eating all these cookies, I have a real simple remedy for eating too many cookies. Are y'all ready? This is deep and profound. I need both of you to get your stylus out, your tablet out. Get ready to write this down.
Listening.
Don't buy cookies. Don't buy cookies. You won't eat them if you didn't buy them. So
Right.
stop it.
Right.
The pantry it didn't move, it didn't enlarge, the doors are not transparent, they're still the same doors. We just have to make better choices. The pandemic has forced me to eat a lot. It didn't. You recognize now that you're eating because you're bored.
Yes.
And you're not hungry, so go drink some water.
Yeah.
I send random texts out to my client, hey, go drink 8 ounces of water right now. Whatever you're doing, stop, go drink some water. So a couple of them just carry a bottle of water around with them because I don't know when your text is going to come. Good, just drink some water because you're not sad. You're just bored.
Yes.
And when you're bored, just drink some water. Go take a nap. Go lay down. Go do something other than destructive behavior.
That's good, Carmen. If you don't mind indulging me for a few minutes, I wanted to end the show in a different way by playing a version of This or That versus Would You Rather, the fitness and eating addiction. Are you ready?
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm nervous.
Okay. So the ideas that I throw out, you can comment if you want to after, you choose. Weight loss versus fat loss.
Depends on starting point. If someone is morbidly obese, just big, you're headed towards my 600-pound life. They're one and the same. Get that weight off your heart. If we're talking about, me personally, someone who's, functional in all facets of life, I definitely fat loss is the deal.
Yep. I would say at the extreme, it's weight loss. Once we get into a normalized zone, fat loss.
Mm-hmm.
Eating to live versus eating to heal.
I think those are the same because I don't see life outside of health. And so if I need to heal, I need to be well. And living is being well. So I think that it is more than eating to taste and it's eating to live, which is done by eating to heal the dis-ease that's going on.
I've just changed this entire game into Miami Heat. I'm LeBron, you're D Wade. It's just going to be a bunch of alley-oops. There's no reason for me to answer these questions twice. We're just going to throw the ball. Whoever's down, we're going to get
whoever goes first, right?
That's it.
Got it.
Let's get through the questions.
Let's do it.
Intermittent fasting, yay or nay?
Depends on. The best answers always start with it depends. It depends on what the person will do consistently. Will you consistently do the thing? It's a tool like any other. If you're trying to get across town, you ask me, how do I get 5 miles from here? I can tell you how to get there on a car. I can tell you how to walk there. I can tell you how to bike there. I can tell you how to get on the bus. It's a tool. It's a vehicle like any other. And the only thing that makes it good or bad is if the person will fulfill it.
Awesome. Low carb versus.
That's that. So that was that. So I'm just really sitting here. I'm back down on defense now. Right.
Low carb versus sugar.
Sugar is, most people are addicted to sugar.
Okay.
And what they don't want is really low carb. They want low processed carbs. I heard a person tell me I don't eat any carbs. I just eat fruit and vegetables. So I gently raised my hand to ask if they knew that fruit and vegetables are carbohydrates. Sugar is a drug. It does to us what heroin does. It does to us what cocaine does. We are addicts. When we cut sugar, our addiction to sugar, life will change and get better.
Yeah. I'd like to stop here for 1 second because I think we've got a momentum going, and part of it comes from the voice and the questioning. Mm-hmm. We're saying no to a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have people listening that are going to say, well, you just emptied out my whole cabinet. I don't even know what to do.
Right.
I know what not to do now, but now what, right?
Right.
Nobody likes to be told no. So my approach has always been displacement. It is the same thing that my parents did when I was coming up. You can do such and such. You can go where you want to go after what? You do your chores, after you do your homework, mm-hmm. right? So mm-hmm. let's make sure that we're also talking about, here are the positive things that you must do first, after which I'm not going to complain about the fact that you went and bought cookies, right?
Right.
Right.
That's got to be in there somewhere.
Right.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And nobody follows the reasons why diets don't work is a restrictive lifestyle is counterintuitive to how we live. And so if everything is crossed off on my list, I don't want that list.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tell my client, I tell people, and I tell myself, listen, if you want to eat cookies, eat cookies. Just know what cookies cost. Just know what the cost is and what are you going to mitigate the cost.
Wow.
This sterile lifestyle that we live in a bubble. I know people are watching saying, well, they must not eat anything. No, I eat a lot of things. And some of it is probably the same thing that you're eating.
Right.
But I also know what that costs and I'm willing to pay that cost. So if you say something like intermittent fasting, does it work? Yes, it's a tool. It's a tool that can work if you work it.
Right.
But it in and of itself is not going to save you. So try it. Try it and see how life is meant to be lived. So experiment with it. 16 off, 8 on. See what that feels like for you. Stop watching the fitness models and the people that they hire to be influencers and they pay to be influencers who always tell you, I do this, and if you do this, you'll look like me. You won't. You'll look like you.
Right.
But try it and see if it works for you.
That's right.
Yes.
A side note, if the guy you follow on Instagram or the lady you follow on Instagram never has any clothes on while they're working out, their workout is about them. It is not about you.
Oh, that's good.
I just want to put that out there because somebody was like, "Sure, man, you should put more videos on." I don't want followers of me. I don't need. I have great friends. I have y'all. I have a great. I want you to follow principles.
Right.
But if I have to take my shirt off so you can see how ripped I am, then I want you to be enamored with me. And me is not your sound science, sound policy, sound thinking is what's going to get you out of that rut. Not following after me.
Yes.
Right.
That's just a sidebar.
That was good, Sherman. And lastly, take a pill that gives you a perfect body or take a pill that guarantees that you'll live to at least 80 years old. That's just a fun one.
So LeBron, I'm gonna defer to you on this one because you might have to back somebody down in the paint on this one. But I'm on the wing in case you kick it out.
I love it.
I'm
Definitely gonna kick it out. The number one currency to me in the universe is time.
Yes.
Okay. I cannot buy time. I can buy everything else. I could even buy a perfect body. I could spend money, go down to South Beach, have them cut me up, give me that body, right? Does it guarantee me the thing that I really want, which is time? More specifically, I want time with the people I love, doing the things that I love to do. There's my deal. Time is the deal.
Gentlemen, that is our time. But before we go, tell listeners how they can connect with you. I'm sorry, Sherman. I don't want to.
Hey, me and Sherman got a game plan.
No, you didn't. You didn't cut me off. He backed him down, and I didn't need to take the shot from the wing because he backed him down in the paint and got him with the up and under. That's perfect.
Got it. That is our time. Gentlemen, tell the listeners how they can connect with you. Just let them know.
I want you to join my online community, 7.community, SEVEN.community. It is a place with no algorithm. There's no ads. It is a space for Black perspective. And inside 7.community, I have an online coaching group where you're going to find other people that are pursuing the same goal you have of longevity and better health. And there's some fantastic people in there. So it is a relatively new venture. It is a space for like-minded people. It is, an alternative to getting you off of, this toxic environments online and put you around people like Nika and Sherman.
Yes.
7.community.
Thank you, Sherman.
I am going to join today because I have known of you for a long time, followed you, but I recognize the value in community,
yes,
the value in like-mindedness. You can find me at Sherman Nelson 2 on all social media platforms. I have 5 things that matter to me: my faith, my family, my fitness, fun, and fellowship. And in that order, I don't make excuses for any of those 5. and I will aggressively defend all 5 of those. So you may see me post something really ridiculous so that it's fun and funny.
Right.
And the next time I will post a sermon, and the
Right.
next time it's a picture of my daughter. So
I love it.
because it's all the facets of who I am. So join us as we walk this walk and live this life together. Thank you, Nika, again for the invitation, the opportunity, and the vision behind changing the narrative, because this is legacy. You're changing how we write this story for the next generation.
Yes.
And we are tired of them reading a story about us written by somebody other than us.
Indeed.
That's right.
It's important that we write this story. We want to tell Black men how to be Black men. Nobody else can tell them except other Black men.
Absolutely. Thank you all for allowing me to showcase your stories and the work that you do, for doing your part in changing the narrative, and lastly, for keeping your commitment to of being part of the show. That means a lot. So if you've enjoyed the show, please let us know. We would love to shout you out and post your comments. If you or someone you know is changing the narrative, please contact us at iChangeTheNarrative@gmail.com. We would love to share your story. Meet us here next Saturday at 1:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you guys again. Have a good one.